Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:37 is the time. Delighted to welcome Andrew Rosindell, Conservative MP, to the studio alongside Tom Slater, still here. Andrew, good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Just a quick first question. I want to talk about what's going on in this country, but first up, this revelation about basically Trump's cabinet leaking a group chat about classified military strikes on the Houthis to an American journalist 2 hours before those strikes took place. But crucially, not just the intelligence issue there, in terms of should we be sharing our own intelligence with these people, given that they are not being secure with that, but also the revelations that they're loathing of European freeloading and not wanting to help us out by protecting shipping lanes in the Suez Canal. What do you make of that American Trump White House view of us?
Well, first of all, I think it's really concerning that under the new administration in Washington, things like this are happening. It's quite frightening because this can lead to huge dangers for all of us. We share intelligence with the United States via Five Eyes, and so the idea that these things can be leaked to journalists and people can be put into groups and get classified information, frankly, is really concerning. And I hope that our government will be raising this with the United States. Are
you worried? I mean, I would have thought you'd largely be sympathetic in favour of the Trump administration and all the things they're doing. There's no Trump derangement syndrome that people... If you say anything, if you said, like, oh, I didn't like the colour of his suit, oh, Trump derangement syndrome. But the fact that these senior figures, I mean, J.D. Vance, the Vice President, and the Defence Secretary, Hegseth, both of them talking about loathing. Loathing, that's a strong word.
I think they need to be more professional. I think the administration in Washington are doing things. They're shaking things up and they're doing things that the previous Biden administration could never have done. I think they are achieving things, but they need to be more professional. They are leading the world's greatest nation in many ways, a superpower, and they have to handle other countries that they work with, particularly allies, in a more professional way, and they haven't been doing that. So I think they need to sharpen up their act.
Do you want us, as Dave, our last caller, suggested, to become the 51st state of the USA?
No, but I'm very happy to see America join the Commonwealth. So I think that's not a bad idea, but there's no way we're ever going to become the 51st state, and I don't think Canada wants to become a state of the USA either.
No, they've made that rather clear, have they not? Yes. Let's talk about things at home. Tomorrow we've got the spring statement. Not an emergency budget, spring statement, according to the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. We're not going to have tax rises, therefore, because it's not a budget and we're just ahead of the next tax year starting in April. But, of course, there's a lot of talk about what spending cuts there need to be. A lot of talk about, again, fiscal headroom and rinky-dink things. So some of the defence spending will be put on, capital spending won't count as part of this and that, and a lot of moving around of things. But we know that we're going to expect the Office of Budget Responsibility to downgrade growth expectations. How bad is it, basically?
Well, there'll be a lot of smoke and mirrors tomorrow. The fact is they have badly misjudged the economy last year. They are spending money that we simply don't have. They're borrowing us into huge debts. We already had huge debts, but
I mean, you lot
even
did
greater.
that, if you don't mind me saying.
Well, we did, and that's because we borrowed so much money because of the COVID lockdowns and the pandemic, which I voted against.
You did?
I didn't agree with them, and I think it was a huge error. But I wasn't in the government. I was a backbencher, so I did vote against those things. Frankly, the people suffer. If governments waste money and spend money and tax people to the hilt, which is what this Labour government's doing, the people who will suffer in the end will be the British people. And that is what this government is doing to them. They're all about ideology, and it doesn't work. Socialist ideas always end in tears, and we're seeing the same thing play out once again.
Well, there's a lot of talk from Labour backbench that this is George Osborne-style austerity, because there's no austerity. We are seeing massive increases in spending, pretty much in the public sector, that talk about some cuts to a number of civil servants, to a number of to the budgets. But of course, that is a drop in the ocean compared to how much they increased since 2016, post-Brexit and lockdown and the like. If you were in government, if you were actually in government now, what would you be doing?
We have to reduce what we're spending. It is unsustainable to carry on spending the way we are spending, and to
Where would you cut?
believe...
I mean, easy to say.
I would absolutely cut the public sector. The public sector is overbloated. It's grown enormously since the COVID pandemic. We have civil servants doing things that I think could be reduced. We certainly don't need any more diversity, equalities and inclusion officials in the public sector.
We've
got far too many of those. But there's a whole range of areas in the public sector that I think a future Conservative government should cut back on. The reality is that we have to live within our means. Now, Mrs Thatcher taught us that in the 1980s. You cannot spend what you don't have. You have to grow the economy. We need that kind of approach to actually get our feet back on the ground again.
We're told again and again by Keir Starmer and, of course, his Energy Secretary Ed Miliband that growing the economy is exactly what the Green Energy Plan is all about. There's a bill to set up Great British Energy, again, a company that, as far as I can tell, still does nothing but will cost us a fortune. It's not going to create any energy. A lot of people thought, oh, it's going to be an energy company.
Sounds great, doesn't it? Yeah, Great British Energy.
It's going to be an energy company, brilliant, but they won't be fleecing us.
No energy coming from that.
No energy coming from that at all. A lot of hot air. The plan from the Energy Secretary Ed Miliband is to spend £180 million of your and my money on solar panels for schools and hospitals. Solar panels are pretty much largely in this world made by China. And the biggest area supplying Chinese solar panels is where Uyghur Muslims are kept in slave labour camps and forced to produce these goods. There's a vote in Parliament. The government is going to whip its MPs to vote against this Lord's amendment to the it's coming to the Commons today, meaning that solar panels made with forced labour should not be an option, and they could basically end up being used on the roofs of schools and hospitals in this country. What do you make of that very, very, very strong commitment to tackling slavery, very strong talk about even reparations for slavery for 200 years ago, but seemingly a rather lack of concern for slavery in the modern day that's happening here and now?
Well, there's two major points here. First of all, I'm very sceptical of buying anything from China, and I'm really concerned the long-term implications of buying solar panels from China and what that would lead to. But that's another issue. The key point here is that if we buy these solar panels from China, we are effectively funding slave labour. I think it's Xinjiang where this is happening. It's absolutely outrageous. We shouldn't be doing that. The reality is that there is a chance to block purchasing items like this that are produced through slave labour.
So basically you need to be sure that they're not, as opposed to you think they're not, basically. That's kind of what it comes down to.
You do, but there is this, at the moment, this vote taking place, and the Labour Party apparently going to remove that amendment, which will open the door for effectively funding slave labour in China. Well, I don't think we should be doing that, and I think Labour should look at themselves in the mirror. I mean, it's supposed to be a party that believes in human rights. Well, if they believe in human rights, then they're not really showing it over this matter, are they?
Well, again, I just find the utter obsession with slavery that was ended by Britain a couple of hundred years ago, but not really caring about it now. Where are you on Freebie Gate? We've had all the free glasses, free suits, free tickets to watch Arsenal for Keir Starmer, free clothing for other people, including Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, as well. She has also admitted to taking £600 tickets to see Sabrina Carpenter in a box. She claimed it was a security issue. Now we know she's also accepted tickets to the National Theatre as well. Interestingly, the Transport Secretary, Haile Alexander, says she hasn't accepted any tickets since she's been a minister. Should anyone in government, should an MP get any freebies, and what have you taken?
So, freebies. I've never taken clothes. You know, I purchased my own spectacles. I didn't get them given to me.
Most people do.
Of course you do. But all MPs, all journalists, public figures get invited to special events. I get invited to loads of special events. Do you know something, Julia? Half the time, I'd rather be doing other things. But you accept because the organisers want you there. And I say, please come to our event, please come to our occasion. And when you look at actually the ticket price on some of these things, it's a lot of money, which you'd never want to spend that yourself particularly. So a public figure, like a Member of Parliament, I get invited, we all get invited, you get invited, I'm sure, to lots of things. So let's not go down this dark hole too deeply. The reality is, though, if you're a minister, it's slightly different. You do.
Police officers aren't allowed to accept freebies.
Well, I don't know what the rules are with the police. I suppose there are arguments about bribery. I don't know, but there is certainly any politician, particularly a minister, has to look very carefully at what they're accepting and how it looks.
And so much of it is how it looks, isn't it? Is this politically wise when you are cutting winter fuel payments, for instance, for low-income pensioners, not the lowest income, but pensioners nevertheless who are scrapping to make ends meet, and then you're off to sit in a corporate box?
I get that, but I know from being an MP, I've been an MP now for my 7th term now, so over the years I've been invited to lots of things. Things are useful sometimes. You go to events, you meet people, you network, or you learn about an issue, therefore you can talk about it in Parliament. But the headline cost of these things, you and I both know, the real cost of these things are nothing really. It's just a seat somewhere and you're watching a show or watching an event.
The question is why those people want to invite you. Now, I'm not in a position, I don't have any power to make decisions over their business or their tax or anything like that. Rachel Reeves does, doesn't she?
Everyone wants a celebrity, everyone wants a top politician to be there to introduce them to people. This is the way the world works. And so I'm a little bit more relaxed about this. But I do think Rachel Reeves as Chancellor, and bearing in mind all the crazy things they've been taking, like spectacles and clothes and goodness knows what else, they should be a little bit more sensible in what they accept and what they don't accept.
Just finally, I want to ask you about the latest figures on Channel migrants. The arrivals in the first 3 months of this year has topped the arrivals in the first 3 months of last year. Because often when people make comparisons, what happens in July and what happens in January, very different because of the weather and the conditions in the Channel. 5,847 asylum seekers landed in the UK January, February, March. That's up from 5,435 the same period last year. Basically about another 400 odd people. That stopping the boats by Rishi Sunak didn't work, but smashing the gangs ain't working either.
No, smash the gangs. What happened to that? It's a load of promises that have turned out to be a load of hot air. And while this is happening, Julia, the British people are getting very angry about it. They want a government that's actually going to protect our borders, protect the interests and security of the British people, and that's not happening under this government. Now the Conservative government failed as well. We need a radical plan to protect our borders and to stop illegal immigrants from coming into our country, and those that are here need to go.
Well, I think we're all in favour of that, but just if only someone would do it. But there we are. 10:48 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. I get Tom Slater's thoughts. We're also going to be talking about why the Reform donor, founder of Pimlico Plumbers, Charlie Mullins, faced threats to remove his OBE because someone didn't like his messages online. We'll talk about that up next. This is Talk, Home of Common Sense.